adding to frustration for many people across southeast Texas who are already dealing with widespread flooding. Now that includes Galveston. You can see it here sitting at 80 degrees. You got some cloud cover there. We're going to have the Weather Channel's Justin Michaels there. He's been there and he has a closer look at how people are doing their best to navigate the rainy conditions. We've got a beautiful dry weekend ahead, but that is not going to be the case. So let's talk about it, because across Texas, really across the southeast. Now, I will say the good news for a lot of us is we're seeing kind of the quantity of some of the shower action go down for some of us. That's not going to be the case everywhere across the southeast. And here is why we don't need any more. Here's why we're dealing with flooding issues in Galveston, around much of the coastal plain of Texas, because this is the rainfall over the past 7 days. And where you see those oranges, that's 5 to 8 inches with sprinkled in there up to a foot, over a foot. And then we see that kind of area across the southeast. Can you tell where the stalled frontal boundary has been kind of hanging out across the southeast over the past week or so? Yeah, you see those higher rainfall totals start to add up when you have kind of a focal point like we've had. And then, of course, we're watching different systems come in and affect us. So abundant moisture, that's the story of the game across the southeast. So if it's not raining, it's really, really humid. Dew points in the 70s across this region. That dew point at 77 degrees in New Orleans, it feels like you're in a sauna. So you're probably just like hoping it will rain, actually. Take a look at what we're expecting through the rest of your Friday. Again, we've got those scattered showers and storms. You can see that plume of moisture lifting north. But for a large portion of, say, Alabama, Georgia, even into some parts of Florida, you're going to see a little bit of a break the rest of the part of today after we get past these showers this afternoon, and then a little break overnight. So we'll get some relief from that for your Friday night. That possibility for flash flooding across this region, the lower Mississippi River Valley, the coastal plain of Texas continues. Take a look at our Saturday forecast. You can see kind of that reignition of those diurnally driven storms. It's like a light switch, right? We see those that light switch flip each afternoon in the summer, and we've got those scattered storms popping up. But what you'll notice as you look at that is it's not as widespread and it's not as intense as it has been, but we're still keeping that risk for flash flooding around. So when you have that, when you have, you know, kind of multiple days of rain, when you have situations where the ground is already so saturated, even just a little bit can sometimes cause those flooding issues, and I think that's what we're seeing for a lot of these places.
And Galveston just floods so easily.
Yeah,
like, as does the Houston Metro.
New Orleans, Galveston.
New Orleans.
Yeah, a lot of those places do that. Well, time now for a storm story that takes us to Lake Erie.
Speaking of which.
Yeah, speaking of which, Scott Feist was with a group checking on one of the roller coasters at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio.
Once safely up top, they looked off in the distance and saw one of Mother Nature's greatest wonders, a water spout. Here's Scott's storm story.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because you're going to get a nice little payoff for, say, Boston this weekend, but you've got more rain in the forecast on Monday. You can see it here after a gorgeous weekend. Your Saturday and Sunday could not be better, unless you don't like the mid-80s, and then that's maybe a little too hot for you. But Monday we're in the lower 70s. We've got rain, and then you can see those temperatures are right back up Tuesday and Wednesday there in Beantown. So here's the forecast for the region tomorrow. Gorgeous, right? We'll take a break from that active weather that you were seeing kind of round after a round of for a while. We've got temperatures maybe a little bit above average for some places, but not too bad, especially when you're comparing that to some of the weather that you've seen recently. By Sunday, still mix of sun and clouds. You're not dealing with, you know, as much of a chance for any type of active weather as you will be as we head into early next week. So here's what's happening. We've got those disturbances that Chris was just talking about moving across the Midwest, and then we're going to watch as an upper level low is impacting you, as well as the winds picking up, as the waves picking up, all of that stuff heading into late Sunday and early next week. You can see your wind gusts starting to pick up there in NYC. We're watching them pick up there out on the Cape as well. This is what we're watching for your Sunday into your Monday. We're watching that rain build in from the coast, those gusty winds, maybe some coastal erosion as we're watching that as well. And then we see this rain filling in from the Ohio Valley, eventually over toward the coast heading through Tuesday. So you're going to get into a much messier pattern heading into early next week. That rainfall total forecast is light, but we're going to be back to at least nuisance rain. To see that through the eyes of a child that's so innocent, and to have such a grasp on what a big, you know, what a big thing happened here. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been an active year when it comes to tornadoes, and a lot of this has been in the central part of the country, Tornado Alley, but then also into the Midwest. Places like Illinois, Iowa really hit hard this year with tornadoes. The South, we had our fair share, but not as active as years past, especially in the winter time.
Now, typically when we're getting into this time of year, especially along the Gulf Coast and for states like that, your tornado action can sometimes be linked to tropical systems. You can see with Beryl, confirmed tornadoes here just a ton of them as it lifted across the country.
Beryl was an overachiever, and that led to some of the uptick in tornadoes this July, but as did the derecho that came roaring through eastern Iowa, northern Illinois. Look at the Chicago area, how many confirmed tornadoes we had, 42 reports back on July 15th.
Yeah, that was a record day there in Chicago, one that we do not want to repeat.
No.
Which is what a lot of us are going to be dealing with. You got to be so careful when you're talking about that risk for severe weather. Terrible timing, right? When you've got that possibility heading into the weekend, but better off to know about it, where we might be dealing with it, and then you can plan accordingly. You can see our risk area tomorrow, portions of the northern tier. We're going to stretch that down through the Front Range, the plains getting in on that, and then you can see the heat and humidity that's out ahead of that storm action. We've got the sun shining for places like Chicago, Detroit, Columbus tomorrow, though. A little bit of rain action going up over the mid-Mississippi River Valley, which, as we remember, we've had a lot of rain around there recently, so going to add more onto that. Dry air is currently lingering as we head into the weekend around the Great Lakes, but that is going to change. We're eventually going to get an influx of some of this moisture coming in from the west, but in the meantime, before that, soak it up while you have it, because when we do get it, it's going to be abundant moisture on Sunday. You're going to go from feeling pretty comfortable, where we've got that drier air, to feeling very muggy and very humid all over again. A couple different disturbances pulsing through as we head through the weekend, so that's going to bring us that risk for severe weather. Here's our Sunday risk area, still a couple days out, so you might see this upped a little bit, but in general, just an isolated severe storm possible on Sunday from Fargo down through Sioux City, Omaha, Des Moines, getting in on that, stretching over into Minneapolis. So here's what we're looking at on your Sunday. You can see that plume of rain lifting from the north, but then also trying to fill in across the northern tier. We see a much rainier map by the time we're heading into Monday. Places like Minneapolis down through St. Louis, over into Indianapolis, that possibility for rain and storms. And then that continues filling in eastward for Tuesday. Well, now let's get a live look at conditions.
Have been getting the storms, have been getting so much all at once. Like in Tucson, it's been impressive how much rain we've seen this week alone. And
you just wish you could get it in some of the places that really, really need it, that are dealing with that extreme drought.
Yeah.
But, you know, it seems like the same places are getting it over and over. Well, it's been a tough go for cities. Hot there, right? Hot, steamy in Tucson. But we have that possibility of more rain before all is said and done, and it has already been quite rainy. So in Animax, Arizona, you can see over the past 24 hours, that's one of our top rainfall reports, over 2 inches there. As you look down toward Tucson, edging up toward 2 inches, just over 1.8 inches of rainfall in the past 24 hours. That might not sound like a lot, but let's put that into perspective for you, because sometimes it's the perspective that makes all the difference to really put this into a category of what a big deal this is. So in Tucson, the average rainfall to date, where we should be in terms of rainfall, is 1.87. But as we just saw, we got that in the past 24 hours just about. So the rainfall to date so far is 3.84 inches. That is double where we should be. So that is a lot of rain on an area in a short period of time. Typically, as we head through July, the total rainfall for your monsoon rain in Tucson is about 2.25. Obviously, we've surpassed that, and we still have quite a bit to go in August. And we're not done with July yet, so that's where you start to run into some of these issues. We do continue to see that monsoonal rainfall continuing for September, so we hope that, you know, we're not seeing any more of these major numbers, and maybe we can even it out a little bit, because we do know we need that monsoon rainfall. You just don't want to see kind of double like we've already seen in places like Tucson. Chris.
All right, now let's get a quick check in on Montana. Take a listen to this.
Maybe you're kicking off your Friday and your weekend with a little travel. Hopefully it won't be as nearly as messy as last weekend's travel, right? But we still might have to deal with some airport delays if you're traveling tomorrow. You can see our green icons here, especially for our Gulf Coast states. Going to have those storms continuing. That could cause some delays. Looking out towards Salt Lake City, maybe a few weather-related delays there for you as well. Hitting the roadways, same thing. We're going to have rounds of rain across the Sunshine State. Frequent lightning with these storms as well. And then it's going to be isolated in nature, but there's that possibility for some strong storms and very heavy rain at times that's going to slow down some of that driving, or at least it should, right? Along that I-10 corridor from Jacksonville to Tallahassee, going down through Baton Rouge as well. We've got that possibility for some flash flooding for this region because we have seen so much rain. Isolated severe thunderstorms once again, and a lot of lightning with these. These are going to be the types of storms that the windshield wipers are doing nothing, because we have plenty of moisture. So if you find yourself stuck in one, you're going to have to slow down. Keep that in mind for your travels. As you head into tomorrow for the Gulf Coastal Plain of Texas, rounds of rain and storms. The last thing we want to hear around places like Galveston and Houston, where it's just been so wet. Flash flooding continues to be possible there. And then, of course, that threat for lightning with any of these storms. We could see some scenes like we've seen in terms of some roadway flooding and ponding as well. Chris. In some parts of Texas by nature of the warmth and the heating. But let's time it out for you because some of us are going to be seeing some of those puffy clouds pop up, and they're going to be nice and fun, and then they're going to start raining a little bit later. So let's time it out for you. Here's our rainfall for the past 7 days. We had that stalled frontal boundary hanging out across the southeast. Can you tell the area where it was kind of bobbling back and forth? Yeah, where you're seeing that yellow and that orange, a good focal point for that rain coming down. But especially why we're seeing some of these flooding issues here is the coastal plain of Texas. Slow drainage there. You have not a high incline, but a low incline. So it takes a while for the water to reach back into the Gulf. And then we've got so many rounds of rain that we've seen recently. Abundant moisture is continuing to be the story into the weekend. Chris just mentioned it. You can tell how much moisture we have in the atmosphere by all of that cloud cover, or you can tell by walking out the door. Look at some of these dew points that we've got in place. 72 in Atlanta. It is muggy, but it is not even comparing to that 76 in Jackson or 77 in New Orleans. When you're getting those mid 70s, upper 70 dew points, it is so muggy out there. Timing it out for you. Rounds of rain continuing around New Orleans. New Orleans, you're a foot above average in terms of where you should be rainfall so far this year, so you don't want any more, but we're just adding on to it. And then you can see heading into Saturday, we've got these showers and storms from Arkansas down through the Texas coastal plain, as mentioned, where we do not need any more rain. We are getting it. So that is going to add to our flash flooding possibilities. Here's the look for Saturday from the mid-Mississippi River Valley for the entire Gulf coastal plain down south of Tampa all the way down to South Padre Island, Texas. So that possibility for flash flooding is widespread heading through Saturday. And it's because we've had so much rain and we're going to add more onto it. And we've got so much moisture for the atmosphere to work with. It's like when the wash rag is just soaking wet and you wring it out. That's the type of moisture that we have Saturday in the atmosphere. And it's not changing a ton on Sunday, but I will say heading into this weekend, a lot of us that have been socked in the rain and the cloud cover are going to get a little bit of a break at least one day or the other. Now, not complete amazing, dry, low humidity day, but a little bit of a break in some of the downpours. But we continue with that possibility for some tropical rain heading into early next week. It is that time of year, Chris, where you expect, the tropical downpours each afternoon. It's when you're getting into it round and round and round all through the day and into the night. That's the problem.
Oh, those birds just caught my attention on that to monitor. I know you guys at home can't see it.
I was like, wait, there are birds in here?
There were.
Where are there birds?
No, not in here, but somewhere
the type of day it's been, I would be getting pooped on by a bird. So I'm glad they're on the camera. Anyways, time now for a storm story that takes us to Lake Erie. I love this one. Scott Feist was with a group checking out one of the roller coasters at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio.
And once safely up top, they looked off in the distance and saw one of the great...
Word, Chris, thanks. So let's talk about it. If you're in Boston this weekend, gorgeous. Could not be better. But look what happens by Monday. Lower 70s, rain moving in, and then we're right back up to those temperatures in the mid-80s with a mix of sun and clouds. So soak up your weekend. Get everything that you need to get done this weekend done, because as we head through later part of Sunday into Monday, we'll start to see that weather deteriorating. Here is tomorrow. Here's your Saturday across the Northeast. This is your gift for all of that heat and all of that storminess that you've been dealing with. It's a beautiful weekend that we're going to have this weekend. Sunday, a lot more of the same. Binghamton, you're going to be gorgeous. Plan some outdoor plans in Binghamton on Sunday. But watch what happens. Chris was just talking about the disturbances moving across the Midwest. We're going to watch those move across the Great Lakes into the Northeast as we head into the early part of the next week. But we're also watching a system of low pressure that's going to be impacting some of our coastal areas. So here's the weekend. Watch what happens. We're starting to see this kind of take shape. Maybe a little bit of subtropical low action going on here. Maybe something for us to watch. By Sunday night into Monday, we're seeing those winds pick up on the western end or the eastern end of Long Island, around the Cape there in Nantucket, 35, 40 mile per hour wind gusts. You also know when you're getting wind gusts like that you're getting some coastal erosion as well. So that's what we're kicking off early next week with. We've got some rain moving into places like Boston because of that. The gusty winds coming along with that too. And then we watch our rain shield fill in from the west across the Ohio Valley, upstate New York. You're getting in on that. We're going to stretch that over into the 95 corridor once again. So rounds of rain. That is what we're expecting for once again through early to mid next week. Chris.
Kid.
Yeah.
So well spoken.
So well spoken. And, to see that through the eyes of a child that's so innocent and to have such a grasp on what a big, what a big thing happened here. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's been an active year when it comes to tornadoes, and a lot of this has been in the central part of the country, Tornado Alley, but then also into the Midwest. Places like Illinois, Iowa really hit hard this year with tornadoes. The South, we had our fair share, but not as active as years past, especially in the winter time.
Now, typically when we're getting into this time of year, especially along the Gulf Coast and for states like that, your tornado action can sometimes be linked to tropical systems. You can see with Beryl, confirmed tornadoes here, just a ton of them as it lifted across the country.
Beryl was an overachiever, and that led to some of the uptick in tornadoes this July, but as did the derecho that came roaring through eastern Iowa, northern Illinois. Look at the Chicago area, how many confirmed tornadoes we had, 42 reports back on July 15th.
Yeah, that was a record day there in Chicago, one that we do not want to repeat.
No.
Chance for more rain on and off throughout the weekend for the Gulf Coast, but also we're keeping an eye on that severe risk tomorrow across the northern tier, stretching down through the Front Range as well. Heat, humidity, you guys have all of that out ahead of those storms. Meanwhile, gorgeous day. Could not ask for a better day in Detroit, Chicago, Marquette for your Saturday. You've got sunshine, you've got slightly lower humidity, and those temperatures, why they're not cool, but they're also not stifling, especially when you have drier air in place. Sometimes that dry air makes all the difference in making an 85-degree day feel comfortable versus feeling just absolutely miserable. By Sunday, abundant moisture is returning. It's being pulled north, so that's going to increase your humidity, and that is going to help us to get some rain and storms back in the forecast as a couple different disturbances move across the northern portions of the country. So here's our risk area for Sunday. Maybe some gusty winds, maybe a little bit of hail as well. Fargo down through Sioux Falls, Omaha, Des Moines. You're all included in that risk for Sunday. Watch what happens. We see this fill in throughout our day on Saturday, lifting from the south, swinging in from the north. So in Minneapolis, you're getting something out of that. Chicago as well, a couple different rounds of showers and storms. Green Bay, you're going to have rounds of rain as we head through your Sunday into your Monday and your Tuesday as that action continues to push eastward. So rainfall total forecast up to about an inch. Let's give a live look at conditions in West.
Sure.
Yeah, I think some of my most visual memories of some of the flooding out west is when you see it going down through the canyons, which is such a concern when when you talk about the flash flooding out there. It really happens in a flash.
And that's a popular spot this time of the year. A lot of people head out. Which
happens so quickly, and that's not what you want, that flooding. And it's because we have had so much rainfall across this region, so much more than we would typically see. Now look at these rainfall totals in the past 24 hours. Animax, Arizona, over 2.3 inches there. Outer Canyon, over 2.1. But Tucson, this is a number that I want you to pay attention to as we move forward. 1.83 inches of rainfall in the past 24 hours there in Tucson. So our average rainfall to date for the monsoon should be at 1.87. Instead, we've had 3.84. So we have more than doubled where we should be in terms of rainfall so far in Tucson. And that is problematic. It leads to the flooding like we've just seen. I know that might not seem like a lot of rain to other parts of the country, but in this area, it causes big issues when you get that much rainfall. You can see we've seen more already, and we're not done with July for the month of July than we typically see for the entire month. We're going to continue and actually ramp up that monsoonal rainfall in August for Tucson. So hoping that we can kind of get this to even out. But if we continue down the same trend that we've been on, Chris, we could likely see more of those flooding issues like we've already seen. You're kicking off your Friday and your weekend with a little travel. Hopefully it won't be as nearly as messy as last weekend's travel, right? But we still might have to deal with some airport delays if you're traveling tomorrow. You can see our green icons here, especially for our Gulf Coast states. Going to have those storms continuing. That could cause some delays. Looking out towards Salt Lake City, maybe a few weather-related delays there for you as well. Hitting the roadways, same thing. We're going to have rounds of rain across the Sunshine State. Frequent lightning with these storms as well. And then it's going to be isolated in nature, but there's that possibility for some strong storms and very heavy rain at times that's going to slow down some of that driving, or at least it should, right? Along that I-10 corridor from Jacksonville to Tallahassee, going down through Baton Rouge as well. We've got that possibility for some flash flooding for this region because we have seen so much rain. Isolated severe thunderstorms once again, and a lot of lightning with these. These are going to be the types of storms that the windshield wipers are doing nothing because we have plenty of moisture. So if you find yourself stuck in one, you're going to have to slow down. Keep that in mind for your travels. As we head into tomorrow for the Gulf Coastal Plain of Texas, rounds of rain and storms. The last thing we want to hear around places like Galveston and Houston, where it's just been so wet. Flash flooding continues to be possible there. And then, of course, that threat for lightning with any of these storms. We could see some scenes like we've seen in terms of some roadway flooding and ponding as well. But for more storms this weekend is adding to frustrations for many people across southeast Texas who are already just stuck with rain, dealing with widespread flooding. That includes Galveston, like you see here. That's where we find the Weather Channel's Justin Michaels. He has a closer look at how people are doing their best to navigate these rainy conditions. And there are a lot of people like those in Galveston who are saying, wait, no more. I just need a little bit more sunshine as we're pushing our way through summer and heading toward fall, because look at all this rain that we've seen across the south in the past 7 days. At that frontal boundary, that stalled boundary that we've talked a lot about, that helped to focus a wide swath of at least 3 to 5 inches in the past 7 days. You can see some of those higher totals in the orange and the red as you look at the Gulf coastal plain of Texas over into Louisiana. So we've really had a very rainy, stormy time of the last week. Plenty of tropical moisture hanging around as we head into the weekend. A little bit more of a focus across some areas than others, so it might not be quite as widespread as it has been. But what is widespread is this humidity. You're looking at the dew point temperatures right now, 74 in Houston, getting some rain in New Orleans, so you're not dealing with such intense humidity. But Atlanta, Tallahassee, anytime you have a 7 on the front of your dew point number, you know it's feeling humid out there. Let's time it out for you for your Friday evening. Some showers and storms still bubbling up around Atlanta. We'll watch as the swath of rain continues filling across Louisiana up through Mississippi. Luckily, that starts to come to an end overnight, so hopefully we'll get to wane away at some of those flash flood issues that we're having. But you'll notice the coastal plain of Texas still getting rounds of rain. So here is where we could see some of that flash flooding from Corpus Christi all the way around the Gulf Coast down into just south of Tampa as well, and then across the lower Mississippi River Valley. So that flash flooding could be an issue. Let's take a look at what you can expect throughout your Saturday. Going to have to plan around some of these showers and storms. What you'll notice is it's definitely an afternoon into the evening thing. You're just going to want to keep an eye out. What I do not like to see, though, is this pretty persistent rain over portions of Texas that are already very wet. You do not want to see that. We've got that possibility for flash flooding continuing really from the coastal plain of Texas, stretching back into around the hill country, and then you've got from the Ohio River Valley all the way down into South Florida with that chance for some flash flooding on Sunday. So a lot of people dealing with that. And Chris, keeping a very close eye on that severe weather that we have this evening.
Yeah, one lone storm that's producing
today, where a lot of people are trying to go and enjoy their weekend, maybe vacationing there, popular tourist spot around that area. So let's head to Boston, where you have a fantastic weekend. If you're spending your weekend in Boston, hit up some patios, enjoy some outdoor time, because the rain is going to return on Monday, lower 70s for you. We're right back at the mid-80s, mix of sun and clouds Tuesday and Wednesday. Monday is really our focal point there for some of the areas along the New England coastal region because of what I'm about to show you. First, though, I'm going to bring you the good news. We're going to do like a sandwich of good news. So here's your good news, first layer of bread. Beautiful day for Saturday, lots of sunshine. We've got temperatures in the 80s. Here's the other bread of the sandwich. So I'm going out of order. We're going to put the meat in there, which is the bad part, or maybe not. I don't know. The sandwich reference really isn't working out the way I thought it would. But regardless, the weekend looks good. You've got a mix of sun and clouds. It's heading into early next week that we've really got to watch. So here's what's happening. Late Sunday, we're going to watch disturbances moving across the Great Lakes, an upper level low. It's also going to be kind of influencing our weather a little bit, but it's Monday that we've really got to watch. So watch what happens here. Here's the weekend. We're watching Saturday, Sunday. We're starting to see some circulation taking place, maybe a little bit of low action going on here. By the time we're getting into Sunday night and Monday, we're seeing those winds picking up in Montauk there across portions of Long Island, Nantucket, the Cape. Those winds are getting gusty. And as you know, when you have those gusty winds, those waves are getting higher. You're dealing with more coastal erosion as well. And here's what's impacting you, Boston. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be windy. It's going to be cooler. That is your Monday. And then we'll watch as this rain shield becomes more widespread. That is going to be our Tuesday into our Wednesday. Some showers, some storms. You've got all of that coming. So it's kind of like we get a little bit of a break from that messy pattern that we've been stuck in, and then we're right back at it as we head through the early to middle part of next week. Generally a light dusting of rain here, but some higher totals are certainly possible. I know across the Shenandoah Valley there, across portions of West Virginia, we could really use some of that rain, but we're just not getting a ton of it. We're getting a little, but not enough to get rid of that drought. And to Buffalo, where you've got storms there Tuesday and Wednesday. So Chris, I'm going to keep working on my sandwich references. I'm going to come back and see what we can do about that, because normally the meat is the good part.
Yeah.
Or the bread is, I don't know. It's
I
all
like
good.
the tomato and the onion.
Oh, well, you know what? I might be able to help you with some onion. I don't like tomato, so I can't help with that.
Well, maybe we got nice weather to enjoy a
Yeah.
sandwich outside here in the Midwest. That is going to be a spot that looks